Okay, we might get underway, and potentially a few more people will join us as we go, but respecting people's time, really appreciate you joining us today. I just want to make, this is the Regional Futures Collaborative Projects Program webinar. This is a refreshed program from something that we offered about 12 months ago, so there's a few changes to the guidelines that I'm going to run through today. I also just want to mention that we are going to record today's session. So just got a quick privacy notice on the screen. We'll be recording this and then putting it up on the website for future reference. The basic format of the session today is we'll do an acknowledgement, we'll walk through the strategic objectives of the program, eligibility, how to apply, and there will be time for Q&As at the end. What you've got set up on the webinar is a Q&A stream and a chat stream. Feel free to chat to each other, say g'day, see if you see other people online, or say where you're from today on the chat. But if you have questions that you want us to address in this session, please put them in the Q&A chat line. I do have one of the team online that will be trying to monitor that, and if there are questions that come through the chat, they'll transfer it across. But if you see questions in the Q&A that you think, oh, that's something that I really want to address today, please like it or react to it, just so that the team here can see the most common questions, and we can address as much as we can today. And hopefully some of this session will address some of the questions that you have. So we'll move forward. And I do want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands in which we gather. We are in Meanjin, so the Yagara and Turrbal people, recognising the elders past, present and emerging. Also want to recognise the First Nations people online with us today, and all of the First Nations people, groups and communities that we've had the honour and pleasure of working with through Deadly Innovation and the Regional Innovation Program. Today we are talking about Collaborative Projects Program. As I said, it's something that we offered about, we took offline about 12 months ago to refresh and to look at the guidelines and just make a few refinements. And so today I'm going to run through what the program does, and there will be a couple of differences from what there was before, but it's basically the same intent and similar funding amount, but the match funding contribution is a little bit different. So to start with, I'll confirm it is a competitive funding program. So we are collecting applications for this program in a series of rounds, and they'll be assessed as cohorts, and we'll do that about 3 times a year. But we'll have it as a rolling program because we recognise that bringing together collaborations of people and collaborative efforts can't really be done on a stop-start sort of basis. So we're looking for people to be able to apply when they're ready. And so you'll see at least 3 next year, as well as the current cohort, which will close on the 31st of October. The Collaborative Projects Program is about bringing innovation to life, region-led projects that are going to shift the dial and unlock economic opportunity for regions or for sectors locally. You've got grants of up to $200,000, and we need the partner contributions to be at least 50% of the grant sought. So, for example, if you seek $200,000 in funding under this program, you need to match that with $100,000 of partner contributions, and we'll talk a bit more about what we're talking about partners and what counts as those contributions in a moment. But also, if you go for a $100,000 grant, then you need a $50,000 co-contribution. We are looking for projects that are kind of, I won't call them shovel ready because they're not infrastructure, they're not building projects, they're activations, more project related things, but they need to be ready to deploy. The readiness of this is, we're not looking for you to start the planning when you start the project. We're looking for projects where a lot of that planning has already been done. and you can get underway with activities relatively quickly and have the project completed within 18 months. And this is about addressing local issues. As I said, we're looking for locally led or region-led initiatives to address those, regionally significant, and I call them globally relevant issues. If you solve this problem, or if you make progress on this problem, how relevant will it be to other people? Who else can follow? Who else can learn from your progress? As I said, it will be basically perpetually open, so rolling rounds until we've exhausted the funding. And I'm hopeful that, the better the applications that we get through, the better the projects that we get through, obviously, the more likely we are to be able to reinvest in this program as well. And we will have 3 batches of this next year. Maybe I'll be able to go to the next slide. Just to talk a bit about the strategic intent of this program. I talk about it in 3 chunks. And it really is about, having the strategy already done. So how does it align to some existing commitments and existing effort or investment at the local level? Making sure that it's region-led, that it's something that you have identified in either some strategic documents or other activities to demonstrate that that's something that your region needs, wants, and will be able to, drive real benefit from. So that's about that first bit of being having the strategy done. We're not looking to invest in a plan for a plan. Then it's about, I guess, getting the right partners. Who do you need? Do you have the right people around the table to activate this opportunity that's been identified? Is it an innovation-driven growth opportunity? So how is it, like it's a change management? How are you unlocking economic potential at the local level in order to accelerate jobs and opportunity? So that's that sort of middle piece. And then the third piece is around the legacy. When you finish this project, when you pack up and go home, what's left? What's the change that's been created? And how do the benefits from what you've done extend beyond the partners of the project? And that's, I think, a really critical part of this program, that we're not looking to commercialize, a piece of tech and implement it, in a local council. It's more about being able to create, a new industry, new opportunity, new jobs, and having those benefits broadly flow through the region or into other regions. The eligibility criteria for this is about, being based in a Queensland region. And I think one of the most obvious questions is, what do we mean by that? In this particular program, we have Queensland organisations that are registered for GST that are based outside Brisbane City Council area, but inside Queensland, are eligible to be the lead applicant for this program. You also need at least one other organisation that is in a Queensland region, same definition, to be making a material contribution to the project. Beyond that, you can have as many partners as you like, and they can be from anywhere in Australia or in the world, as long as you meet that criteria. When you've got an idea around what project you want to do and your partners, we get you to put in basically an EOI form through the website, and we will meet with you, someone from the regional engagement team will meet with you to discuss your project and talk to you about the eligibility criteria, and also be able to provide some additional guidance around what the program intent and some of the things that might be, very competitive or of interest in alignment with that program intent. We do not assess any of the projects and the proposals that come through. So the advice that we provide is really around the eligibility, but we can also provide information on program intent that may assist you in crafting up that proposal. We also talk about this cash contribution from all partners being equal to or greater than 50% of the grant amount sought. You will see in the guidelines that we accept cash and like cash in the bank, but we also accept some cash equivalent elements to that. So cash as salaries and other contributions do count. We don't count in kind, but cash equivalents are definitely accepted as part of the match contribution. Okay. We just go through the assessment criteria in a bit more detail. We've got 4 assessment criteria. The first one is around the significance of the opportunity or an innovation activity. So in that, we're looking at what's the evidence base for your project. Do others face similar or related challenges? So as I said, who else would follow if you make progress? And how does it harness those local strengths and existing investment? So we're really looking at what work have you already done around the need, impact, and leverage. So that's that first criteria. To meet the criteria, you have to demonstrate how the project will identify and address a problem to be solved or an opportunity to be leveraged through a place-based or sector-specific collaboration. How will it impact regional innovation for the benefit of the applicant partner organisation, but the sector and the region more broadly? You have to deliver an innovative approach to the problem to be solved or opportunity to be leveraged. So I guess we're looking for those types of problems that don't have an obvious owner and have, and do require collaborative effort in order to be progressed or solved. For assessment criteria 2, we are looking at the strength of the collaboration. What's the commitment, expertise, nature of the partnership that you've brought together? And do you have letters of support from the partners and other contributors, but also perhaps end users or people who will be impacted by your project? So some of the examples that I might use for this is, oftentimes people talk about collaboration that, I've got a problem, so I seek a collaborator to help me solve it. For this program, what we're actually looking for are 2 partners that have come together that have a shared problem, and they each have a part to play in solving that problem, and they each benefit in perhaps different or mutual ways from that problem being solved, and can share that knowledge, that growth with other broader than just the parties. So it's not a commercialization grant, and it is, and it's not just about the parties that are investing in the project being the sole beneficiaries. In meeting this criteria, you've got to demonstrate that you involve the collaborative efforts and resources of the applicant organisation and at least one other partner in a Queensland region, and you're both sharing responsibility for the delivery of the project. It's got to be locally driven. Even though it can have many partners, we really want to see that local drive and that local investment. It should involve the leaders from with the innovation ecosystem who are in line to the project's focus or outcome, and that can be a very broad scope of people. What we're talking about there are people with that, the innovation-driven mindset and who are influential and can help that change be effective and successful. And we want it to involve meaningful collaboration between the organisation partners and leaders and those who possess a shared purpose and have complementary expertise. As I mentioned, those letters of support can be very influential and important in your application for demonstrating the nature of that collaboration, the strength of that collaboration. Assessment criteria 3 is really around the viability of the project. Do you have a clear plan? What's the track record of the partners that are involved? You may not have done this exact project before. As we said, it's an innovation-driven growth project, but demonstrating a level of credibility or track record that that you bring to the table in order to be able to deliver a project of this nature. Do you have a leadership group that can activate the change that you're looking to make? And is it achievable in the time and budget that you've given? So we're looking for projects that demonstrate a clear plan, including project activities, outcomes, risks, and mitigation strategies, involving collaborating partner organisations that have a track record in delivering comparable initiatives, either in Queensland or in broader innovation economy, that you're engaging the local industry leaders who have the capacity and authority needed to affect the change required, and it will be well planned and achievable within the timeframe and budget while demonstrating value for money. For criteria 4, this is very much around the legacy piece. And again, the legacy is, what have you got? What are the tangible benefits that have been developed as a result of the activities undertaken? What's that sustainable change? How does it extend beyond the partners? And if you can translate that benefit to jobs, particularly high value jobs, new jobs, and regional jobs, that's a very compelling part of your application. So you must be able to demonstrate that it's been designed to deliver tangible benefits beyond the commercial interests of the collaborative partner organisations. And as we said, we're looking to go beyond the planning here. We want things that are ready to deploy and activate. Got to have the potential to create sustainable change, quantifiable benefits beyond the life of the project, and demonstrate job opportunity pathways. One of the things that I use, like if we think about those 4 criteria and what we've sort of talked about in terms of the intent of the program, I do like to give a bit of an example that I think helps bring that together. Say, for example, I'm a local council and I've got some underutilised space, and I think I'd like to turn that into a robotics hub, and I've got a corporate partner who's able to refit that space and provide robotics activities, workshops, and those sorts of things. We would look at that in the first instance, and there would be a number of notes that hits for this program. But the key questions that we would ask in order to for you to inform an application for this program are around: why robotics? What have you done at the local level that informs you and provides the evidence that robotics is a skills need or a workplace need for your region, and something that is currently lacking? So we would look at what's that strategic intent piece. Next thing we'd ask around is, I guess, what's the council, like if they're the lead applicant, what is their interest in the project more broadly? Are they going to take an active role in the space, or is this about what can they do with underutilized space, and they will kind of outsource that opportunity to another party? Or is there something where they'll be actively involved and engaged? And also, who else is actually looking to actively engage in this project and activities, such as corporates, training providers, schools, other things like that? So we'd be looking at who's going to take an active role in this. We'd also talk about, and we're going to talk about eligible project costs in a minute, but for this particular program, there is only a very small amount of the grant funding, so up to $10,000 of the grant funding that can be used for capital expenditure. So we'd be looking at what type of activities or that you actually are looking to invest in order to bring that opportunity to life. So does it fit with the eligible costs? And then for the third part around the legacy, one of the key questions that I'd be asking is around how will this initiative create new pathways into jobs? Are there going to be some corporate parties that have indicated that they've got skills needs, or it could even be startups that have skills needs at a local level, and they'll be drawing talent from this particular, hub, or engaging, putting challenges through the hub. So what's going to happen that's going to engage the broader community, the broader business community, and whether that's startups, corporates, training providers, and others, into the robotics hub. So there's some of the things that I think help build out what is already a reasonable start to, for a project, but helps build out that to an application for this specific program. If we look at the program in terms of the eligible costs, as I said, salaries and salary-related on-costs for project staff, and that can be part of the matched funding requirements as cash equivalents. You can also use your project funding for consumables required specifically for the project. You can only use, the capital expenditure is only up to $10,000, as I mentioned before, in terms of $10,000 of the grant funding. You can use it for reasonable travel costs necessary to undertake the project and activity. We recognise that, with regional projects, there may be, travel, consultation or engagement, or even showcase elements where there needs to be a level of travel across regional Queensland or elsewhere. You can use it to get specialist advice and services from external providers, so people beyond the partnership. And that may be an area where we talk, for specific projects, you need to think about whether people that are working in the project, are they a supplier and a specialist advisor, or are they a partner? So that's something that you can think about in terms of structuring your program. And we won't cover, our money won't be used to cover alcohol for events. I guess it's just one of those things about, appropriate use of government funding to make sure that these go to real activations and not be seen to be going towards, things that should probably be provided in other mechanisms. As I mentioned, this is a program that has been available through 3 rounds previously. We've done a little bit of a refresh, but the benefit of that is that there are a number of projects in the wild at the moment that are getting funding under this program. And please do check it out on the website. I've just got 3 here that I'll mention, but there is quite a diversity. The nature of the funding is meant to be, that's why it's locally led. That's why we've got, we don't have prescriptive requirements about what activities we will fund. We're really looking for, what do you need at your local level for your sector or your region to shift the dial and unlock that economic opportunity that you've identified. So, in Mackay, we've got the Mackay cane growers adapting a spatial irrigation tool. Now, obviously, that region has some real credibility and leadership in the cane space. And while they trial this new tool, adapt it to conditions locally, that will actually be able to spread to other regions, to other organisations far beyond that region. So that's where they were able to really put their application into the requirements of this program. If you have a look at the Red Ridge Canvas to Catwalk project in outback Queensland, this was about bringing Indigenous artists together with Red Ridge in order to translate some of those artistic or artworks into textiles and then into fashion, and actually bring that to the catwalks of things like Brisbane Festival and a number of other national and international stages, and actually really create a new supply chain and a new revenue source for our outback Indigenous artists. So that was a really exciting thing, because it was also about relationship building, and as much as it was around those supply chain development. So the legacy there will be quite substantial from the training that I was undertaking for, for some of the business needs, and, going into expanding the work from art into fashion, into supply chain development. So that had a nice sort of well-rounded application. Then you have New Text, which is it's actually a project based on the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct, and it is about creating a dedicated simulation space for image-guided surgical technologies. And this is around stroke and neurological conditions. And what that's actually providing, like, obviously there's a lot of tech, there's a lot of capital expenditure that went into that. So that's not what our project funded. What our project funded is really around activating that space for some of these, for some of the training opportunities, international, local, and broader, and making sure that that space can be accessed and utilised by a range of different cohorts and being available. So it was the activation of the space that is the project that's being funded under this, but you can see that that was a significant investment made locally. They had really shown a strategic opportunity. There was an activation component, and the legacy of that will be around the reputation building of that space and Queensland or Gold Coast as a centre of excellence in this particular medical technology. So again, 3 really diverse opportunities that we've been able to fund, and there's a lot of others on the website. So I encourage you to have a look, but it does just show that it's not about funding one type of project, and it is about building out your application to demonstrate those 3 key elements: strategy, tangible activities and collaboration, and legacy. To support you in developing up an application, or to understand exactly what this program is about, I encourage you to have a look on the website for a number of the resources that are available. Obviously, the key documentation are the program guidelines. So have a look, read those through. One of my staff used to say to me, read the program guidelines, read the program guidelines, and read the program guidelines again. But they are a good guide around what we've talked about today. So, and hopefully this webinar or other conversations will assist in you being able to really translate that, what the guidelines are asking for, and help you really develop up your own proposal to hit those notes. There is some additional information on there just to clarify some of the key points from the guidelines. So have a look at that as well. The tips and tricks is really just essentially like a one-pager. How does this program work? How do I apply? What are the steps? And what do I need to go forward? You will see an example of the financial incentive agreement. If you are successful in an application, that is the agreement that will be the shell of what you're asked to sign. And there's also a grant writing guide on the website as well. That's something that was put together by Tourism Events Queensland, actually. But I find it's a really, plain English, really helpful piece of, like guidance on how to put together an application. And I think sometimes we get really focused on, what the product is or what the project is, and sometimes we don't get to some of those things around how the strategic intent works, why the collaboration is, the strength of that collaboration, and that legacy piece. So the other thing that I would say is have some people in your network that you can share your application with and get some frank and fearless feedback from. You can share it with your mum, but she will love it regardless. So find people that you trust. You don't have to, take all of their advice, but seeing how they interpret your what you've written in your application can be extremely helpful for making sure, like, have I hit the mark? Have I, are they understanding what the information that I'm trying to convey? And this is also just a really useful self-assessment checklist. Like, you've gone through all of that material, you've got an idea about what your project is with your partners and what you want to do. Have a look at this and just think about, okay, is this the right program? Am I ready to go to the next stage? So is the applicant organisation and at least one collaborative partner based in a Queensland region? So it doesn't have to be the same region, has to be Queensland, outside Brisbane. Now, do you have an innovative plan to support and grow your region or your sector? It can be a sector-based one. So what is that? Where has this come from? What's that strategy? Do you have that already done, or the extent to which you have that done? And do your partner organisations, at least one or more of those, share the same goals? As we talked about, are you both invested in the development and deployment of a solution to this problem? Are you able to match at least 50% of the grant funds sought? As we talked about, there's cash and cash equivalent elements that are able to be used in that one. Do you know the economic strengths of your region? Are you demonstrating how your project leverages those strengths, unlocks that economic opportunity, and will create pathways to jobs into the future? And I'll just refer back to my example around the robotics hub. Is that a strength of your region, or an emerging, untapped strength? It could be an opportunity in your region that this will unlock. And then I think critical for this program, talk about the tangible and sustainable impact to the region or the sector that will be realised after the project is complete. And particularly, how will people beyond the project partners benefit? So if you've gone through all that and you're still thinking that this is the program for you, how do you apply? Program guidelines, as I said, read the stuff that's on the website, and just go through and make sure that you're hitting the right notes. On the website, there is a link to an online form in order to get a meeting with one of the regional engagement officers in order to get a certificate that you need in order to attach to your application on Smarty Grants. So you can't submit an application without a certificate, and please don't ring me at 10 a.m. on the day that it closes at 11 a.m. saying, oh, we need a certificate, because it may take a little bit longer than that for us to have a conversation to make, and we'll walk through the eligibility, but we'll also walk through some of the program intent. And there may be some things that, help inform the way you want to frame up that application. So please do give us and yourselves a little bit of time in getting that, that certificate secured. Then, we've got your certificate, you've put your application on Smarty Grants, and you submit. This round will close at 11 a.m. on the 31st of October. It will mean that anything received after that time will go into the next round, and we will have those dates live on the website soon. And we're anticipating 3 cohorts next year. But for this round, 11 a.m., 31st of October. What happens to that then? It goes into the big black box, and you're playing the waiting game. It will go to an assessment panel for consideration. There may be additional information, but mainly what you've put in the application is what you'll be assessed on. And we will endeavour to have those assessed and completed as quickly as possible, noting that it's the end of October. We expect the notifications to be early 2024. So that's the kind of timeframes that you're looking at. If you are unsuccessful, you will get feedback and you can resubmit. But yeah, if you are successful, then obviously you go through, as we talked about, and we'll start negotiating that financial incentive agreement, and we'd be looking for the projects to deploy reasonably quickly after that. But if you've gone through all this and you go, actually, this isn't quite right for me, but I know I've got a great project, but this may not be exactly the program that is right for that project. There are a number of other funding opportunities under Advanced Queensland and elsewhere. Just a few things that are out in the wild at the moment are things like Ignite Spark and Ignite Ideas, which many people will be familiar with, or certainly Ignite Ideas. It's one of our flagship programs. Round 11 is open now, but Ignites, and that's in a commercialization project. If you have a new product or service that's ready to go to market, that could be a really good program for you. But Spark is a new version of Ignite where it's kind of that stage before, where you're in the testing and validation stage. There is now a grant available for that, and that is also open. We have industry research projects, which is kind of similar to a collaborative project, but you're with a research organisation partner, and you're much more focused on a research industry outcome. That one might be a really good one to check out. It's also a lot more money than 200,000, so just saying. So do check that one out if you're doing some research. The precincts and places is something that we're doing webinars on as well at the moment, and is open. There are 3 streams of that. So if you have a precinct or you're developing that up, please do check that one out. Deadly Innovation is for Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander communities and innovators. There's a number of partnership opportunities that we invest in under that. Female founders, there are a range of programs. We have networks as well as capability development programs under female founders. And also with the private sector partnerships, that's where we work with a specific corporate partner to release challenges into the market for people to partner with that corporate to solve those challenges. Those all of those programs are detailed on our website, but you can also come through to the Regional Innovation team to have a conversation at any stage. So that's me and the Collaborative Projects Fund. And I'm going to open it up to questions. I'm hoping that you guys have been putting some stuff in the Q&A. I'm sure what I presented did not answer all of your questions, or please ask for clarification. But yeah, put your questions in the Q&A. And hopefully, and like any questions that you see there, if you particularly want those answered. But I'm looking around to my team just to see if there's a question to start with.
Thanks, Jackie. Can you please talk about the requirements of partners? How much cash should they contribute?
Good question. Now, we haven't indicated a minimum or maximum amount that any partner can contribute. But to be the lead applicant and the first partner, both of those organisations must be making a material contribution to the project. So they must be contributing at least a proportion of that cash, but they don't have to be the whole 100% of the cash in cash equivalent. If we are doing the cash equivalent for salaries, the person has to be contributing at least 20% of their time for their salary to be able to be counted. But so, you're sort of looking for that, that type of contribution would be what we'd be looking for as a material contribution to the project. But it's not specified that it has to be at least 20%, but that's the type of material contribution that we're seeking.
Okay, next question. Are you able to make a cash contribution equal to or greater than 50% of the grant amount sought?
That's a great question. So if you are seeking $200,000 in grant funding, your cash and cash equivalent contribution must be at least 100,000. But you could have 150. You could have, as you can have $1 million. The project's size is not limited. As long as you've got that minimum 50% contribution. And, potentially it can be more compelling if you have a greater proportion, but it is really around the strength of the collaboration and how this, I guess, the project funds that you're seeking will make a material difference to your project. So yes, you can absolutely have a project cost greater than 300,000 in total.
This is the last question in the Q&A chat area, and it's around cash as well. Is only cash co-contribution accepted, or is matching in-kind services also allowed?
And be really careful about consideration of in-kind. We do cash as salaries as accepted for the co-contribution, but a number of things that are around in-kind support are not considered accepted cash contributions. So, and that's something that we can talk about for your specific purposes. And sometimes when you're looking at cash and cash equivalent contributions and what partners are bringing to the table, that might be where you start having a conversation about who is a partner in the application or who might be a service provider to the project. So, and that way their contribution to the project would be counted differently. So that's something that you should really think about in developing up your project, deciding on your partners and deciding on the nature of the budget that you want to put to this.
I've got 2 more questions in here now. Thanks, everyone. If the total cost of capital is above the 10,000 K limit, can the amount be counted towards the partner cash contribution if we are investing in it? Or do we need to make sure there isn't more than 10,000 capital costs in total for any equipment needed for the project?
Really good question. And, the basic answer is that the amount of the grant funding that can be used for capital and equipment is $10,000. Partners may contribute other costs that that can go towards plant and equipment beyond that $10,000, and also in terms of what the partners contribute, and it may be plant and equipment, we would just have to look at how they're actually contributing it in how it can be counted towards the cash contribution or not. So that's probably something that we can talk about in more specifics. But basically, if they're making a purchase or they've got equipment that can be utilized, there are different ways that we can count that as the part of the matched cash contribution. And ways that different partners can bring that to the table. So it's probably a case by case where we look through that in more detail. But yeah, the capital equipment may be something that is provided by the partners rather than the grant.
Another question, where can I find a list of past projects that have been successful?
That's a great question. If you have a look on the Advanced Queensland website, there and go search for collaborative projects. We're currently in the carousel. We're second on the carousel at the moment. But yeah, look for collaborative projects. And on that page, I believe it's towards the bottom of the page, there is a link to have a look at the recipient projects. And actually, there is a link put into the chat by one of the team. So you can go direct to that, of course, following this very exciting webinar. But yeah, so there's a link for you there. but anytime just search through the website. And there's also a couple of case studies that have been done. So there's a Red Ridge case study, there's something for the Food and Agribusiness Network, and a few others. So we're progressively putting not just the recipients on in terms of the project that's funded and the lead, but also putting some more information about how those projects are progressing. So have a look for those case studies as well.
And Jackie, can the project be of benefit to a sector such as SMEs across all of regional Queensland? And is it okay that it be of benefit to wider regional areas across Australia?
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're not saying that the benefits have to be, enclosed to Queensland. Absolutely not. And, we are looking for things that have broader reach, broader benefit. I would, and it'd be interesting to see what the project is and sort of how you can describe how those benefits will be realised across a broader sector. And that's probably the key to the application. What are you actually going to do to make sure that those legacy benefits are realised across other regions, other or into the sector more broadly, as opposed to saying, well, we'll do it, and other people can pick it up. What are some of the pathways that you will be actively creating to ensure that legacy impact is realised?
Jackie, can you talk to the approach that the department will take to ownership of IP in the projects?
Really good question. So the department is not seeking to take IP. We are investing in a collaboration at a local level. We will be asking questions about IP though, and that could actually be a really insightful piece of information about whether the project that you're looking at is best fit for this type of program, or potentially one of our other programs that I've mentioned, like the research, the industry research projects, or Ignite Ideas. So, but in terms of this program and IP, in order for broader benefits to be realised, some IP questions might be really important. So, who owns the IP that's related to the project that you're progressing? How are you accessing that IP? And at the end of your project, like, if there is IP and restrictions on IP, what does that look like? Because that will impact assessment of those broader benefits and legacy opportunities beyond the project partners. So IP is a really great question. We are not seeking to have any IP over those projects, but I guess we're also trying to do projects where we, regional engagement, Advanced Queensland more broadly, might be able to encourage participation or uptake by a range of other stakeholders. So we're not looking to fund in this program projects where that IP is locked up and not accessible.
Awesome.
Yeah, and definitely, sorry, just a comment from the side that, yeah, it's definitely worth looking at how IP is covered off in the agreement with the partners and those sorts of things. So and that's something that we can have a conversation about as part of the regional engagement officer certificate meeting and other things. Again, we can provide some guidance and thoughts, and really at the discretion of the project and the project partners to decide what the best model and best approach is for their project. So it looks like we've run out of questions, or at least for the moment. So I'm hoping that that's been an informative and helpful session for all of you. We will be taking this recording, doing a little bit of an edit and, top and tailing, take out the front, and will be available on the website sometime next week. But I really appreciate the time that everyone's taken to be here today, your interest in the program. and hopefully you've got some exciting projects that you're looking to progress through this initiative. As I mentioned, this isn't a once-off, one-only round. We respect that collaborations take time. So if you're not ready for this round, you may want to go for future rounds. One thing that I forgot to mention is that the Regional Engagement Officer certificate is valid for 6 months. If you get a certificate in this round, but you don't make an application, potentially you could use it in the next round. But what we will do is we will reach out to you and just have another conversation, check in to see, and we'll probably reissue the certificate just so that we can record that we've had that extra conversation. But if you don't, if you don't use the certificate, it's valid for 6 months. Okay. Thank you so much to everyone. I think I've actually managed to stay mostly to time, and that's quite incredible, but it is a Friday, first for everything. Thank you. Have a wonderful Friday and have a great weekend.